Let me start with a question that might make you uncomfortable. What if the number one reason your best employees leave your company has nothing to do with salary and everything to do with training? That sounds backwards, doesn't it? For decades, we've been told people quit because of money, management, or culture. And yes, those things matter. But research is pointing to something more fundamental. People leave when they stop growing, when they feel stagnant, when they look around and realize the company isn't investing in their future. Now here's the paradox. Leaders say they want retention. They say they want engagement. They say they want loyalty. But too often, they treat training like an afterthought, a nice-to-have instead of a core strategy. And then they act surprised when employees walk out the door. But let's be blunt. Retention isn't about beanbag chairs or free coffee. It's about development. It's about giving people the skills to succeed today and the pathways to grow tomorrow. If you ignore that, you don't just risk losing employees, you guarantee it. Here's a story. A mid-level analyst once told me, "I wasn't looking for another job. I liked my team, I liked my boss, but I felt stuck. No training, no new skills, no growth. When a competitor offered me the same pay but a clear learning plan, I left. Not for money, for momentum." How many times has that happened in your organization without you even realizing it? And here's the counterintuitive truth. Career development programs on their own don't necessarily keep people. Why? Because they often focus on long-term goals, promotions, future leadership tracks, while ignoring the immediate. Training, on the other hand, delivers skills people can apply today. That creates instant engagement. It gives people energy. It makes their work feel meaningful right now. Think about it. Which feels more motivating? Being told you're on a path that may pay off in 5 years, or being trained this week in a skill that makes your job easier and your value clearer? Employees don't want to wait 5 years to feel invested in. Here's a metaphor. Training is like oxygen. You don't notice it when it's there, but the moment it disappears, everything starts to suffocate. And by the time you realize people are gasping for air, it's already too late. This isn't just theory. Studies back it up. Research shows that practical, hands-on training directly increases retention rates. One study found that even when career development programs didn't move the needle, training did. Why? Because training delivers immediate utility, while career development often feels abstract, distant, and out of reach. So let me ask you, are you losing employees not because they want to leave, but because you failed to equip them to stay? Because it reframes the problem completely. Retention isn't a mystery. It isn't luck. It's not about hoping people stay. It's about building systems that make staying the obvious choice. And those systems begin with training. But let's be real. Too many executives see training as an expense, not an investment. They look at the upfront cost and flinch. But here's the irony. The most expensive training program is still cheaper than the cost of turnover. Losing one high-performing employee can cost you 1.5, 2x their salary in lost productivity, recruiting, and onboarding. Compare that to the cost of a structured training initiative, and suddenly training doesn't look expensive. Not training does. Here's another counterintuitive truth. The companies that invest the most in training aren't just building skills. They're building loyalty. They're building trust. They're saying to employees, "We believe in your future enough to invest in it." And that message, that emotional signal, is worth more than any perk you can offer. So as we open this keynote, here's the curiosity gap I want you to sit with. What if corporate training isn't just about skills, but survival? What if the future of retention isn't in paychecks or perks, but in learning? And what if the real competitive advantage isn't who pays the most, but who trains the best? Because in the race for talent, the organizations that win won't be the ones with the flashiest perks. They'll be the ones that create workplaces where learning never stops, growth never stalls, and employees never feel the need to look elsewhere. That's where we're going in this keynote. We're going to dig into how training transforms retention, how it accelerates career growth, how it fuels satisfaction, and how it ties directly into business performance. And by the end, I promise you this: you'll never look at training the same way again. Let me ask you this. If you wanted to keep your best people, would you rather raise their salaries by 10% or give them a training program that makes them feel unstoppable in their jobs? Most leaders instinctively answer, raise the salaries. But research shows that's not what actually works. Pay matters, of course, but here's the counterintuitive truth. Training is a stronger predictor of retention than compensation alone. Because money makes people join. Training makes them stay. Think about it. A salary buys you presence. Training buys you commitment. A paycheck might get someone in the door, but growth is what convinces them not to walk out. Here's the evidence. A recent study showed that practical, skills-based training significantly boosts employee retention rates. Career development programs on their own? Not as much. Why? Because career development often points to a vague, far-off future. Training, by contrast, offers something tangible, immediate. It says, here's a skill you can use today. And that immediacy creates loyalty. Let me give you a story. In the telecommunications sector in Yemen, researchers found that training had a stronger effect on retention than bonuses or career planning programs. Employees said they stayed not because they saw a clear promotion path, but because training made their current roles meaningful and manageable. They felt equipped. And when people feel equipped, they don't go looking for exits. Here's a metaphor. Training is like maintenance for your car. You can polish the paint, fill the gas tank, even upgrade the sound system, but if you don't maintain the engine, it breaks down. Salary is the polish. Perks are the sound system. Training is the engine maintenance. It's what keeps people running, not just idling. Now let's flip the script. Leaders sometimes think, if I train my people too much, they'll just leave for a better job. That's the old fear. But here's the counterintuitive reality. The people most likely to leave are the ones you don't train. Because they're the ones who feel stuck, stagnant, undervalued. Train them, and yes, a few might leave, but most will stay. And even if some go, they'll leave as ambassadors, not critics. What's more dangerous? Losing a few trained employees, or losing dozens of untrained ones who drain morale while they're still on payroll? Here's a rhetorical question for you. If you had to choose between an employee who stays because they feel invested in, and one who stays because they feel trapped, which one is more valuable to your culture? Here's another story. A large financial services company invested heavily in training after noticing high turnover in its customer service division. The result? Not only did retention improve, but employees reported higher satisfaction scores and better client relationships. Why? Because they no longer felt like expendable labor. They felt like professionals growing in their careers. That's the hidden magic of training. It doesn't just keep people longer. It changes how they feel while they're with you. It transforms jobs into journeys. Now let's talk about cost. Replacing a single employee can cost 1.5 to 2 times their annual salary. That's recruiting, onboarding, lost productivity, cultural disruption. And yet, companies balk at the cost of training programs that are a fraction of that. Here's the counterintuitive phrase I want you to remember. The most expensive training program is still cheaper than the cost of turnover. And here's the kicker. Training isn't just retention insurance. It's engagement insurance. Because when people are learning, they're engaged. When they're engaged, they're performing. And when they're performing, they're not thinking about leaving. Training creates a virtuous cycle. Learn, engage, perform, stay. Break that cycle, and you open the door to disengagement and exit. So here's the big takeaway. Training is not a perk. It's not an optional add-on when budgets allow. It's a retention strategy. It's insurance against turnover. And like any insurance, it may feel like a cost up front, but when you need it, and you will, it saves you 10 times more than it costs. Let me close this section with a metaphor that sticks. Imagine a garden. If you water it consistently, the plants flourish. If you neglect it, they wither. Training is the water. You can't expect employees to bloom without it. And once they start to wilt, no amount of fertilizer, no bonus, no perk, no pep talk, will bring them fully back. So the question for leaders isn't, can we afford to invest in training? The real question is, can we afford the cost of not training? Let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw an employee get promoted purely because of loyalty? 10 years in the chair, no new skills, but still handed the next title? It happens, but not often anymore. The modern workplace doesn't reward time served. It rewards skills earned. And that's why training has become the real engine of career mobility. Here's the counterintuitive truth. People don't stay in companies because they want security. They stay because they want momentum. They want to feel like the job they have today is leading them to the career they want tomorrow. And training is the bridge between the two. Consider this. Employees who receive structured training are significantly more likely to advance within their companies. Why? Because training signals two things at once. First, it gives employees the skills they need to step into new roles. Second, it sends a message. We see your potential, and we're investing in it. That message alone is powerful. It says to an employee, we don't just value you for what you're doing now. We value you for what you can become. Here's a story. At a logistics company, leaders began offering cross-training programs. Instead of locking employees into one narrow role, they encouraged them to rotate between departments, operations, customer service, supply chain. Within 2 years, dozens of employees had not only broadened their skill sets but also moved into leadership roles. Turnover plummeted because employees no longer saw the company as a dead end. They saw it as a launch pad. Here's a metaphor. Training is like a passport. Without it, employees are confined to one country, one role, one function, one narrow set of skills. With it, they can cross borders inside the organization. They can travel into new territories, try new responsibilities, explore new futures. And once you've given someone a passport, why would they leave? You've made their world bigger inside your company than it would be outside. Now let's push into the psychology. Human beings crave growth. Neuroscience shows that learning triggers dopamine, the same chemical that fires when we experience reward. Growth literally feels good. It creates motivation. And when employees associate that feeling with your company, they're not just working for you. They're growing with you. That's a bond money can't buy. Here's another rhetorical question. If you don't provide that growth, who will? Because make no mistake, someone will. Competitors are happy to scoop up talent that feels stuck in your system and offer them training, certifications, and clear career paths. In fact, that's one of the fastest ways smaller, scrappier companies lure talent away from larger incumbents. They don't just offer a job. They offer growth. Now let me share a case. A multinational bank noticed that its young analysts were leaving after 2 years. Exit interviews revealed the same refrain. I don't see a future here. Leadership responded by building an intensive training academy, technical skills leadership workshops, mentorship pairings. Within 3 years, retention of early career talent nearly doubled. Not because the bank paid more. Not because the work got easier. But because employees could see a career unfolding in front of them. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Training doesn't just prepare employees for their next job. It convinces them that their next job is inside your company, not outside of it. But there's a hidden bonus. Cross-training and skill building don't just benefit employees. They benefit organizations by creating a more adaptable workforce. When markets shift, when roles evolve, when disruption hits, the employees who've been trained across functions can step in, fill gaps, and keep the business running. In other words, career mobility for employees is agility for the organization. Here's another metaphor. Training is like scaffolding. It doesn't just support the building as it grows, it makes growth possible. Without it, the building stalls. With it, the structure rises higher and stronger. Employees who are trained climb that scaffolding step by step. And the higher they go, the stronger your organization becomes. So here's the takeaway for leaders. If you want employees to see a future with you, give them skills that shape that future. If you want them to advance, give them the tools to climb. And if you want them to stay, give them reasons to believe the ladder of opportunity is taller inside your company than outside of it. Because in the end, people don't just want jobs. They want journeys. And training is the map that shows them where they can go. Let me start with a simple truth. People don't leave jobs where they feel satisfied. They leave jobs where they feel stuck. And satisfaction isn't just about the work itself. It's about the meaning behind the work. It's about whether employees feel they're learning, progressing, and being invested in. That's where training becomes a game changer. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Training doesn't just make employees better at their jobs. It makes them feel better about their jobs. And that feeling is the real driver of retention. Consider this. Research shows that job satisfaction acts as a bridge between training and retention. Employees who see training as valuable report higher satisfaction, which directly influences their decision to stay. Without that satisfaction, training is just another checkbox. With it, training becomes the heartbeat of commitment. Here's a story. A healthcare organization rolled out a comprehensive training program for its nursing staff. The goal wasn't just to improve technical skills, but to give nurses a greater sense of confidence and autonomy. Within a year, satisfaction scores soared. Nurses reported feeling more competent, more respected, and more supported. And turnover? It dropped significantly. The link was clear. Training had improved not just performance but pride. Here's a metaphor. Imagine a candle. Without training, the flame flickers, weak, unstable, at risk of burning out. With training, the flame strengthens. It burns brighter, steadier, giving light not just to the employee but to the entire team. Training is the fuel that keeps satisfaction burning. Here's another story. At a mid-sized tech company, leadership realized engineers were leaving because they felt disconnected from the company's broader vision. So they launched training sessions that weren't just technical, but strategic, teaching employees how their work tied into organizational objectives. The effect was immediate. Engineers reported greater satisfaction, stronger engagement, and a renewed sense of purpose. Turnover dropped, not because salaries changed, but because meaning increased. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Satisfaction isn't a perk. It's a predictor. When employees feel satisfied, they commit. When they commit, they stay. And when they stay, performance compounds. Let me give you a rhetorical question. If training improves satisfaction, and satisfaction drives retention, why would any leader treat training as optional? Isn't that like refusing to water your crops while wondering why the harvest fails? Here's a metaphor to make it stick. Think of training as the soil in which job satisfaction grows. Without rich soil, even the best seeds, competitive salaries, cool offices, fancy titles can't grow. But with the right soil, everything flourishes. Satisfaction takes root, commitment blossoms, and loyalty becomes the natural fruit. Now, skeptics might say, job satisfaction is intangible. We can't measure it. But that's not true. You can measure it in engagement surveys, in exit interviews, in performance data. And the pattern is consistent. Organizations that invest in training see higher satisfaction scores, which correlate directly with retention and performance. Here's another counterintuitive truth. Satisfied employees don't just stay longer. They perform better while they're with you. Dissatisfied employees may stay for a while, but their disengagement costs you far more than their salaries. So the choice isn't between satisfied employees who leave and dissatisfied ones who stay. The real choice is between investing in training or paying the price of disengagement. Let me close this section with a story. A retail company once noticed that stores with the highest training participation also had the lowest turnover. But here's the kicker. Those same stores also had the highest sales. Why? Because satisfied employees weren't just staying. They were selling more, serving better, and committing harder. Training had created a double dividend: loyalty and performance. So here's the takeaway. Training isn't just about skills. It's about satisfaction. It's about creating workplaces where people feel invested in, valued, and proud of their contributions. And satisfaction, once achieved, doesn't just keep people longer. It makes them better while they're with you. Because at the end of the day, people don't stay for paychecks. They stay for pride. And training is what gives them a reason to feel it. Here's a question worth pausing on. What happens when employees' personal goals and organizational goals pull in opposite directions? The answer is simple: disengagement. People feel torn. They may do the work, but their hearts aren't in it. They see the company's mission as something separate, even competing with their own. That's when productivity drops, retention suffers, and cynicism creeps in. Now here's the counterintuitive truth. Alignment doesn't happen through slogans or vision statements on a wall. It happens through training. Why? Because training is where employees learn not just what to do, but why it matters. It's where they discover how their personal growth connects directly to organizational success. And when people see that connection, everything changes. They stop feeling like passengers. They start feeling like drivers. Here's a story. A European manufacturing firm struggled with morale. Employees felt disconnected from the company's global strategy, like cogs in a giant machine. Leadership tried new posters, pep talks, even bonuses. Nothing worked. Finally, they restructured their training to emphasize alignment. Workshops weren't just about technical tasks but about how those tasks contributed to quality, innovation, and customer impact. Within a year, employee surveys revealed a dramatic shift. Workers reported higher satisfaction, stronger commitment, and a sense that their work mattered. That's the hidden power of training. It turns abstract missions into concrete meaning. Here's a metaphor. Imagine rowing a boat with 10 people, but everyone is paddling in different directions. That's what happens in organizations without alignment. Training is the rhythm, the drumbeat that unifies the paddlers. It says, here's the stroke. Here's the pace. Here's why we're rowing this way. Suddenly, you're not just 10 people with oars. You're a crew moving in sync. Here's the psychology. Humans crave coherence. We want to believe our efforts contribute to something larger. When training shows us how our daily work connects to organizational goals, it creates coherence. And coherence drives commitment. Here's another story. A financial services firm introduced leadership training for mid-level managers. Every module tied personal leadership skills back to company strategy, customer trust, innovation, and resilience. Managers began to see themselves not just as supervisors of tasks, but as stewards of strategy. Engagement scores rose, silos broke down, and collaboration across teams improved. Why? Because training built alignment, and alignment built trust. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Alignment doesn't reduce individuality. It amplifies it. Because when people see how their unique strengths contribute to a bigger goal, they don't feel lost in the system. They feel essential to it. Let me give you a rhetorical question. How often do your employees hear about the company's mission? And how often do they actually feel it in their work? If the answer is rarely, the problem isn't your mission. It's your training. Here's a metaphor that makes it stick. Picture an orchestra again. Without alignment, each musician plays their own tune. Beautiful, perhaps, but chaotic together. Training is the rehearsal that teaches them not just the notes, but the harmony. Alignment isn't about suppressing creativity. It's about weaving it into a collective masterpiece. Now, skeptics may ask, isn't alignment just another buzzword? The answer is no, because alignment is measurable. When training links personal development to organizational strategy, you see the results in lower turnover, stronger engagement, and higher performance. Fabian et al. 2024 found that structured training aligned employee goals with organizational objectives, and that alignment built both belonging and commitment. Here's the kicker. Alignment creates resilience. Because when disruption hits, a new competitor, a market downturn, a global crisis, aligned employees don't just hunker down. They adapt. They ask, how can my growth help us pivot? That's the kind of workforce you want in uncertain times. So here's the takeaway. Training isn't just about skills or knowledge. It's about meaning. It's about showing employees, your growth is our growth. Your goals matter here. Your future is tied to ours. And when people believe that, they don't just stay. They stay engaged, they stay committed, and they stay ready to build the future with you. Let me ask you to picture this. An employee sitting at their desk, scrolling through LinkedIn, glancing at job ads. Not because they hate their boss. Not because they want more money. But because they feel stuck. Because every day looks the same. Every task feels recycled. And every week that passes convinces them that staying means stagnation. That's the emotional reality of workplaces that don't invest in training. People leave not in anger, but in quiet resignation. They don't slam the door. They drift away. Now flip that picture. Imagine the same employee, but this time they've just finished a cross-training workshop. They've learned a new skill, discovered a new pathway, and suddenly the job feels bigger, not smaller. Instead of scrolling LinkedIn, they're sketching out ways to apply what they've learned. Instead of searching for escape, they're searching for opportunity, right where they are. That's the emotional difference training creates. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Retention isn't about locking people in. It's about lighting people up. You don't keep employees by trapping them. You keep them by expanding them. Here's a story. A mid-career marketing specialist told her manager, "I don't want to leave, but I feel like I'm not growing here." The manager listened, and instead of offering a raise, offered a training pathway into digital analytics. Within 6 months, the employee not only stayed but became a leader in the company's analytics team. What made the difference? Not pay. Not perks. Training. Here's a metaphor. A career without training is like climbing a ladder with missing rungs. You can struggle up for a while, but eventually, the gaps make it impossible to climb further. Training fills in those rungs. It gives people the confidence and the momentum to keep climbing. Now let's stir the emotional core. At its heart, training is about dignity. When organizations train their people, they send a message. We see you. We value you. We believe in your future. That message builds belonging. And belonging is one of the strongest emotional anchors of loyalty. Here's another story. A call center had one of the highest turnover rates in its region. Leadership assumed it was because the work was repetitive. But exit interviews revealed something else. Employees didn't feel invested in. So the company built a robust training program, not just on technical skills, but on communication, problem-solving, even leadership basics. Turnover dropped by 1/3. Why? Because employees no longer felt like anonymous operators. They felt like professionals being developed. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Training is emotional, not just functional. It doesn't just give people skills. It gives them pride. And pride keeps people tethered to their work long after the paycheck has been deposited. Let me give you a sticky one-liner. Employees don't quit jobs. They quit the feeling that their future has stalled. And here's another. The strongest retention strategy isn't a contract. It's a classroom. Now let's talk hooks. Training plants small emotional anchors every time it happens. The aha moment when someone masters a new tool. The pride when a manager recognizes growth. The relief when a skill makes work easier. The excitement when new doors open. Each of these anchors ties the employee tighter to the organization. Remove training and those anchors vanish. Employees drift. Here's a rhetorical question. If training builds both skill and pride, can you afford to skip it? Or is every skipped workshop another cut in the rope tying your best people to your company? Here's a metaphor to close this section. Imagine your workforce as a field of lanterns. Without training, the light dims, one by one, until the field grows dark. With training, each lantern glows brighter, feeding the light of the others, until the whole field shines. That's what emotional engagement looks like when training is taken seriously. Because at the end of the day, training isn't just about competence. It's about confidence. It's about pride. It's about giving people a reason to stay, not because they have to, but because they want to. So let's step back. What have we seen? We've seen that training isn't just about teaching skills. It's retention insurance. It's career mobility. It's job satisfaction. It's strategic alignment. It's emotional engagement. We've seen that employees don't stay where they're paid the most. They stay where they grow the most. And we've seen that training is the lever that lifts everything: performance, loyalty, innovation, and resilience. Now the question isn't whether training works. The question is, do you have the courage to prioritize it? Because here's the truth. You don't build retention with exit interviews. You don't build loyalty with slogans. You don't build engagement with perks. You build them with training, with structures that say, we're not just renting your time, we're investing in your future. That requires courage. It takes courage to spend money on development instead of yet another round of recruitment. It takes courage to measure success not just in this quarter's output, but in the skills you're building for next quarter's challenges. It takes courage to admit that the biggest risk isn't training people and losing them. It's not training them and keeping them. Here's the counterintuitive payoff. When you give away knowledge, you don't lose power. You gain it. Because you multiply capability across your entire organization. You stop being a company of a few experts and start being a company of many. And that multiplication makes you stronger, faster, and more resilient. So here's my call to you. If you're in the C-suite, stop treating training as a line item. Treat it as your competitive edge. If you're an HR or L&D leader, stop asking, how can we cut training costs? Start asking, how can we expand training impact? And if you're a manager, stop waiting for headquarters. Start training your people right where you are. Because training isn't a perk. It's a promise. And when that promise is kept, people don't just stay, they thrive. Here's a metaphor to carry with you. Imagine your workforce as a forest. Without training, the trees may grow, but slowly, unevenly, and many will wither. With training, you fertilize the soil. Growth accelerates. The canopy thickens. The forest becomes resilient, capable of weathering storms. That's the difference training makes. So don't wait. Don't delay. Every day without structured training is another day your people are drifting. Another day competitors are preparing to poach them. Another day you're paying the silent tax of disengagement. Here's the final challenge. Within the next week, identify one area where you can add training. It could be a mentorship program, a cross-training pilot, or even a workshop. Start there, because the moment you invest, you send a signal. We care about your growth, and we're willing to prove it. And once you start, momentum builds. Training becomes culture. Growth becomes contagious. Retention becomes natural. The future will not belong to the companies with the flashiest perks or the deepest pockets. It will belong to the companies where people grow. So the question is not, can you afford to invest in training? The question is, can you afford not to? It's time.